The enforcement of the restriction of activities of the commercial motorcycles and rickshaw operators in some parts of Lagos, popularly known as Okadas and Kekes, turned chaotic in Ijora Olopa area of the state in the early hours of Monday. The restriction came into effect on Saturday, February 1st, 2020, and on the first working day since the ban came into force, some commercial motorcyclists had a clash with the men from the police team who were trying to enforce the ban as directed by the Lagos state government. Reports said the riders resisted the policemen who tried to confiscate their motorcycles, and a physical clash ensued in the process. This amateur video that cannot be independently verified by Arise News shows a burning fire purportedly set by the angry riders who were said to have pounced on other road users to vent their anger. Calm has since returned following the deployment of anti-riot policemen to the scene of the clash. The Lagos state government last Monday announced restrictions of activities and commercial motorcyclists and rickshaws in 6 local government council areas and 9 local council development areas, as well as some major highways and bridges across the state.
So joining us now is Hassan Soweto, a public affairs analyst and national youth leader of the Socialist Party of Nigeria. It's a great joy to have you, Hassan Soweto. We can independently verify that video. We cannot, I should say, we cannot verify that video. But are you aware about what happened yesterday?
Well, I mean, like other Lagosians, I got to know about it from reports on social media, which was further confirmed when a number of, newspapers actually published the news. And then from the account of those who were in the area, it's obvious that some form of violent clash occurred. And we must say that that's going to be a pattern in the coming period, because it's a question of livelihood, for many of the operators of the Okada as well as the tricycles. And when you want to take a man's source of livelihood without providing an alternative, then the likely response will be that of armed violence. And that is why it is important that the trade unions, as well as civil society organizations, they come into the picture by trying to organize peaceful mass actions to ensure that the Lagos state government, is compelled to begin to review this policy.
I mean, we are beginning to see the effect of this ban. It started on Saturday, the 1st of February. But as of Monday, when a lot of people had to get to work, was when they began to see the dire effects. And looking at the outpour on social media and from these mobile companies, the Go-Karters and the Max, the Opes and so on and so forth, what should the next step be? How do we tackle this? Because it is a problem, and the Lagos State government is saying that this ban is here to stay.
Well, the Lagos State government has probably not learned anything from history. The ban cannot stay; it will be resisted ultimately. In 2012, October, a similar ban was enforced, but on the basis of the mass action consistently, by the Okada riders in affiliation with civil society organization, especially the Joint Action Front. I mean, ultimately, Lagos State government had to back them. Don't also forget that we had a period in Lagos State under the administration of Governor Babatunde Fashola, who increased the fees at the Lagos State University and sustained it for 3 years, insisting that it should not be reversed. But after serious campaign by the students, as well as the staff unions on the campus, eventually it was reversed. So I'm making all of this point to show that regardless of what the state government has said, history shows that when the people are united and are ready to fight, anything can be reversed, any anti-poor policy. And that's my challenge, to the Okada riders themselves today, that we need to come together. We need to bring back the same kind of united platform we had in 2012, to be able to prosecute the struggle.
You can't completely ignore the fact that these Okada riders and these kekes, known as tricycles and motorcycles, actually have contributed to the fatalities. I mean, the Lagos State government has come out to say that in general hospitals alone, they have about 10,000 related cases. And we're not even talking about the deaths, just the very, very serious injuries. We know for a fact that these Okadas and these kekes are used to commit crime. We know that if you get in if a motorcycle hits you and you come down to defend yourself, you can be bombarded by 10, 12 motorcyclists. So there is a problem here, but it seems as if the narrative is just getting them back on the road. What about the solutions here?
Yeah, that's because the Lagos State government itself has failed to address the real problem. There's a reason why you have Okada, as a means of public mass transportation. It's an aberration. It is malady. In a state of 20 million people, you have tricycles, Okada, as public mass transit. It's a clear evidence, of the failure of those who call themselves the ruling class of Lagos State. For more than 20 years, they have been in charge of this state, a state that ought to be, if it's a country, the 5th largest economy in Africa, and they cannot provide modern transportation system to ensure that the economy of Lagos State runs, to ensure that the people of Lagos State, the workers, are able to get to work at the right time. I came in from Akute area this morning. I've been on the road since 6 a.m. I didn't get here until a little bit before 10 a.m. And that's because of the enormous traffic on the way. And I drove. That's to tell you what people go through every day. People go through that in the morning, then also, when they're leaving.
But they created buses. They put buses on the road.
Buses are incapable. Buses are also to complement, the trains and all other, means of public mass transportation.
They said they put 6 boats on the river.
Well, the Lagos State government has never been able to provide any modern means of water transportation. And that's also an aspect of the entire conversation because given the geography of Lagos State, you have enormous water bodies, which means that you could actually have a very thriving transportation system through the waters. But even that, has not been done as they should do it. There have been some puny effort, but nothing in terms of what is required. And the point that needs to be made is that ultimately, if they don't do that, then asking those who are providing that service to leave the road will be unacceptable because it's not just a question, of the kind of hardship it will create for those who need to get to work and they cannot get to work because these services have been banned, but also because as a result of joblessness, these means of transportation has also become a source of livelihood. So that if the Lagos State government is actually sincere, it must have a two-pronged approach of developing public infrastructures, while at the same time ensuring that for everybody who is an operator, of Okada or tricycle, who would, by that modernization of transportation system, lose their jobs, that they are provided alternative means of livelihood. That is what ultimately will ensure that when people lose those jobs, they don't come back to become criminals.
But I want to come in here. There have been allegations of gun running by Okadas. There have been allegations of crime. You remember, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, about somebody that an assassin took an Okada, got into traffic, got close by his dorside in the car and shot him dead.
Yes.
We all heard that story.
Yes.
And most of the crimes perpetrated are perpetrated by motorcyclists.
Yeah.
So is that not enough reason, like the Lagos State government would say?
Let me first correct.
The commissioner sat down on that situation. He said, I can't allow some people to come and run our state over. That's what the commissioner said. He was sitting on that situation.
Most of the political office holders, the anti-poor political office holders, they are always, divorced from the reality of ordinary people. I'm a Lagosian, a poor Lagosian, who also undergoes all of the dangers on the daily basis of having this system of transportation that is unregulated around. But while recognizing the dangers, I also know that you cannot develop a society by knee-jerk reaction. And the proposals I've made here today is what differentiates what our party represents compared to these other anti-poor political parties who do not want to address the real issue, but instead wants to criminalize ordinary working class people who are trying their best to survive. And that's why I want to correct the impression, the word you used. It's not motorcyclists who are the criminals. It's criminals using motorcycles, using tricycles to commit crimes. Because when you use that first expression, it will mean that's the medium that's said.
Motorcycle in the end.
That's exactly what I'm saying. But it also means that there are others who are using motorcycles, for legitimate businesses without attacking people.
But how do we know if it's unregulated?
Exactly.
How do we know?
That's exactly the point, because
how do we know?
Vehicles are also used to rob, downfalls are used to rob, and all of that. But the point is that if you want to address crime, let's address crime. the reality is that you cannot have a state as big as this, as populated as this, and there's no public mass transportation.
Take it.
That is what Lagos State government must go back to, and we believe that there's money for it. But the reality for them is that they know that if they have to provide modern transportation system, it requires enormous investment of resources, which they would like to steal instead of investing it. It's the same way they are not investing on education. The Lagos State government, as it is today, is a government that should be kicked out by the masses on the basis of all of its inadequacies. This is a city of 20 million people. How many public and primary schools do you think exist in Lagos State? How many public secondary schools? How many public tertiary institutions? Many of these deficits have been taken care by private operators. And that's why also in the education sector, you have Okada kind of a phenomenon there of ramshackle, buildings, so-called international private schools, which are just two-room apartments, with people pretending that they are studying in those places. And you have a commissioner of education, you have a party that has been ruling for over 20 years, the working masses of Lagos State, all to be on the street to begin to protest against this kind of anti-poor policies that Lagos State government has been posting. And that is why we are not making any progress. So I do not, at any point in time, believe that Okada is a proper means of transportation. I recognize all of the dangers. And of course, there have been many Nigerians who have suffered some accidents through it. But what we say is that the provisions must be made. Let's have the alternatives. And beyond the question of public mass transportation, what about the condition of the roads? Yes. Because if Lagos State says they are using Okada to rob, Okada is causing accidents, we have also seen many accidents occur in Lagos State due to potholes.
In fact, there was a tweet that says, if you say there are many people that have been hurt by Okada, can you say how many people have been killed by potholes on the road in Lagos?
Exactly.
We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. If we'll take it now. We'll come back and we'll talk to you about this and even more. Right now, welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. And we're talking to Hassan Soweto right here. And we've been talking about the ban on Okada. And there's a tweet that says from Jethro Jerry, posted a video showing kids riding to school in the back of an open truck, tweeting, these kids have enough to deal with the terrible education system we run in this country, yet the government put them through these horrific conditions to get them to school. How did it get this bad? This is dangerous for kids. Kids, and it says hashtag ban, hashtag ban for a greater Lagos.
I just want to add, add these figures, and I know we don't have the images on there. However, just to kind of juxtapose both situations. Now, we're talking before the break about how Lagos is a state of about 20 to 22 million people, and that is even just at the last numbers. Now, somebody did a comparison and said in London alone,
that's Obo Global on Twitter.
Yes, Obo Global on Twitter said in London alone there are 8,600 buses in the bus fleet, operating on 700 routes and serving 19,000 bus stops, serving a population of 8.7 million. Now, how do you even begin to wrap your head around that?
I think it just confirms the point I was making earlier, which is that there has to be a plan to provide a modern transportation system that befits a mega city. When you read about Lagos State on Wikipedia, under transportation, what would they say? Danfo, Molue, Okada, rickshaws. And that is supposed to be a mega city. And that's why I think that the Lagos State government, they have been selling a lie for over 20 or so years.
But the commissioner said expressly here that rickshaws, motorcycles are not part of the Lagos mega master plan.
That's why
so this is just the first place to flush it out.
So when do we have the master plan? Because
he said it's ongoing. This is the first process.
For a ruling party that has been in place for over 20 years. I think that it's a statement that even indicts the ruling APC. But what it shows is that if for over 20 years, they are not able to provide a proper transportation system in Lagos State, then there's no reason for them to be there anymore. PDP ruled nationally for 16 years. And Nigerians felt that 16 years of backwardness, of mass poverty in the midst of plenty, means that they had had enough. my challenge to Lagosians, working class Lagosians, young people in Lagos is that must also be our own standpoint in Lagos. Because a mega city without proper education system, without proper healthcare system, without proper, transportation system, is no mega city. And it shows again that they don't have any serious plan or program. Because even if the idea is to ban Okada, it should be an outcome or a product of a process of providing an alternative. Something which will mean that without legislating it, the Okada and tricycle would of their own become unable to go on operating because nobody will patronize them. That is how society develops. But when you don't provide those alternatives, and the first thing you do is to ban, you are going to create a chaos across the state. And that's what we started experiencing from Monday. And it's going to go on and on and on like that. In any case, just to answer the commissioner, it is true that, we have had cases of Okada riders or criminals using Okada and tricycles to commit crime. But if those who use these things for means of livelihood are unable to continue to have a means to survive, inevitably, it will mean that those millions of people who ride Okadas will join the gang of criminals.
Another thing they've said is, Okada is easy money. That we don't have plumbers, we don't have bricklayers. That a lot of people are not learning other trades like we used to have before. Yes. Now, Okada is just easy money. Somebody was riding on go-karts yesterday, was being interviewed, and the person said, I make about 20K every day. And I looked at that and I said, anyway, that's 600,000 in a month on Okada.
Well, she didn't say anything about what she delivers.
Obviously. So,
because if to ride Okada is that lucrative, then it will mean that all of us will become Okada riders. The truth is that they pay enormously to those who own the Okada. And the lady who was interviewed, I think she's an employee or an operator for one of these ride-hailing services, which means that what she gets at the end of the day is likely going to be pittance. And that is why for us, as part of the process of this struggle to resist the ban, as part of the process of demanding proper regulation by Lagos State government of Okada businesses and co., is also to demand that the Okada operators who are in the services of these ride-hailing companies must be unionized. They must have associations.
But the ride-hailings don't want to be in associations. And I'll give you a clear instance. A case of buses, I remember, a certain ride-hailing company bought a couple of buses then, and the unions kicked them out. Because you ask yourself, how are the unions being run in the first place? The unions with the, I don't like to call them urchins. I'll call them, motor park administrators, the agberos, because I don't think they're urchins. Because initially, what the agberos do really are to call passengers into a bus originally. So I don't want to call them urchins. But those are the people running the unions. And it's not easy to get into the NURTW or a Comoron, for instance. Yes.
The NURTW is not a proper union, so to say. When you are talking about a union, I mean a union that fights and defends the interests of its members.
Well, that's
and
what the NURTW does.
Well,
what's the National Union for Road Transport Workers?
It does not do that.
No, I'm just asking, what's the national union? What's the recognized union for road transport workers?
But it does not. When a few had the NURTW, organize a protest to demand for better roads. And
the chairman in Lagos State, MC Olopa, said he had seen the government and they're talking as regards it.
Unions don't see government like that. Unions will write letters, will go congresses to draw a list of demands.
Approach might be different. But just like with Okadas too, Akomoro is a national union.
The only approach for labor unionism across the world is collective bargaining. So if a union is not doing that, it does not have a list of demands and a process of bargaining and code, like we see ASU doing, that is not a proper union, which is why the Lagos State government, has been having that.
So we have 60 seconds to wrap up. So what union would you say they should join if it's not NURTW? Are you trying to start another union?
No, what I'm saying is that the operators of Okada under the ride-hailing services, they need to find for themselves, to build for themselves a union that can defend their interests. But not just them. Other operators of commercial buses and co. also need such a fighting union. Because that is what can ensure that in a period like this, when they are under attack, that they are able to organize themselves to resist. Because it's only through collective struggle that an oppressive government can be defeated.
Hassan Soweto, a very big thank you to you, and sorry about the demise of your father. So sorry about that. We care for you and we reach out to you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of the show today. I'm Rufai Hussaini.
And I'm Shaitan Atigari. Thank you so much for watching. You can also follow us on all the social media handles showing now on the screen. This is Arise News.